For the next couple of minutes, we're going to take a look at WebChartMD's new Report Builder module. This new reporting tool gives our clients the freedom to design reports that they need instead of limiting them to a static set of canned reports that we've produced that may or may not really meet their needs. So we've exposed over 100 different data elements in our database so that you can build the kind of reports that are most meaningful for you. Now, these reports give users access to the kinds of data that they need to make better business decisions. It includes powerful financial reporting tools that let you drill down into every detail of every account, every dictator, every report type, every transcriptionist and QA person, all of the different data elements that exist inside of your business. Now, some of the key features: you can create and customize your own reports with instant on-screen previews to help you see how the reports are going to look. You can set bill and pay settings and rates based on a wide variety of options in the system now. The enhanced set of canned management reports that we've built let you drill down into key productivity and profitability metrics. And you can set report automation to automatically email out your custom reports to clients, staff, and other stakeholders. And lastly, it lets you create and customize invoice detail reports on both the bill side and the pay side for your accounts and for your staff. Now, this first video is one of 5. In addition to this opening orientation video, video 2 will cover the bill and pay dimension capabilities. Video 3 will show you all the new management reports. Video 4 will show you how to set up report automation. And then video 5 will show you the invoice details reports that are available. Let's jump in and take a look now at the new report builder. I've logged into my test account and I'm in the reports section of my online account. You can see in my top right corner a folders view, a settings view, and a reports view. So I'm in the reports view now. And if you've not been here before, this panel to the left looks largely like it always has, but there are a few new buttons that you can click over to the left. And that's where we're going to spend our time today. The report builder is one of the new functional areas. The My Reports is a second, and as you create reports, they store in the My Reports area. And then under the management reports, all of the new canned reports that I mentioned a moment ago are all listed, and those will be covered in a separate video. So let's get started by looking at the report builder. What you'll notice when I click on report builder is that the first column here to the left has 2 groups, one called include and one called exclude. Then you'll see a section called report properties just to the right, column properties right below it, and then aggregate report. We'll touch on each of those sections in the next few minutes. Let's start first with the include and exclude. You'll notice that the exclude section has a long list of words underneath of it. These are the 100+ different sets of data in the system that we capture and have now exposed for you to be able to use to build reports. And they're really all the available custom headers that you can drag up into the include section when you want to create a report. If you hover over each of these column headers, you'll notice a pop-up appears, and that pop-up gives you a fuller description of that column header's definition. So for example, when I hover over bill characters, I see total billable characters in a document, or bill header and then a $sign. Billable amount in header of document in dollars. Report creation is really simple. All you do is drag and drop those column headers that you'd like to appear in your document, in your report, And you'll notice that as I drag them up, the preview begins to build on the right side of my screen. So the creation of a report itself is really simple and visually kind of really intuitive to do. Now I'll drag these back down and let's create a report together. When I create a report, I can create it under all offices, and you'll notice up in the top left corner my tab and drop down showing me all offices and then each of the different accounts that we transcribe for. So if I stick it under all offices, that report will be available for use with any office. My other option is I can click the drop down and create a particular report for a certain office. So let's just say I have a report that none of my other accounts use. I only use it for Hampton Radiology. If I create my report now under Hampton Radiology, it'll be used specifically for that account. For the purposes of this quick demo, I'm going to create my report under all offices. Now, let's say your clients require that you send them an on-time report to confirm you're meeting TAT, one of the many different reporting needs you probably have, but let's look at that one for just a second. So I want to create a report that'll accomplish that, report back to me and my clients on TAT and whether or not we're meeting it. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to grab facility and drag it up. Then I'm going to grab the DID, the dictation ID of the document, and drag that up. And I think I'll also drag up for the time being on time. And that's the column header that reports whether or not reports are being returned on time or not. So there's my first very simple report. And I'm going to name this report here in Report Properties, and I'm going to just call it TAT Report. And after naming it, I'll click the Save button. And after I click the Save button, you'll notice it's now created that report and stuck it under My Reports. And so as you create reports, the system will store them for you in the My Reports section. Well, let's go ahead and run that report. So I'm going to click it, and you'll notice when I do, it pre-populates for me a finished from and finished to time frame, because the report by default will run for the month to date. But I actually have some data in my test account back in June that I want to access, so I'll set my date parameters, and you're able to do this exact same thing and set whatever date parameters you need for a given report. And now that I've created my date parameters, let's run that report. I'll hit the Create button. And my report populates out, and here it is. So I've got the basics of a report now on TAT. And you can see the facility is loaded, the DID is loaded, and whether the report is on time or late or not. In my case, I've got 931 out of 943 reports that were returned late. Not real good. And you'll notice it says late, and it tells me the duration of time or how badly I exceeded my TAT. Now that's somewhat helpful, but as you can see, it's kind of a wide open report with a lot of data, but not a lot of meaning necessarily at this point. And I'd like to now refine this report a bit to make it more meaningful. So let's add a few things that'll make this report more meaningful. To do that, it's really simple. I just come up and press Edit Report in the top left corner, if you can see that. And when I do, it brings me right back to that Report Builder screen where I had created the report initially. So let's add some additional data to make this report more meaningful. I think I'd like to actually see my care providers as well as the facilities. I think I'd like to see my report types, because I got a feeling there might be some correlation between some reports that are late and the report type. So I'm going to scroll down and grab report type. And maybe I wanted to also look at my transcriptionist to see if there's any correlation between who's doing the typing in late reports. So I'm going to grab original transcriptionist and drag that up as well. Now you'll notice my report preview to the right. As I added those new columns, it added that data into my preview so that I could see the report being built. Now, so far so good, but I actually would like to see some of this data subtotaled and broken out for me a bit. So I'm going to come up to facility and I'm going to say group by. When I do, it groups my data, but in a summary fashion. And so I'm going to tell it to expand my groups, which it does. And now my data starts to take shape. So for Hampton Radiology, for Connie Wallace, I had 37 files and all 37 were late. Now let's drill down a bit further. In my care provider area, maybe I'm going to want to group by my care providers too, to group those that data set together. So I'm going to check that. And if you noticed on my screen, and I'll uncheck it so you can see that, when I check it, now it begins to add more structure for me. It shows me the reports grouped by care providers. And I would really like to see subtotals for those care providers so that I can see what each one of them is doing. And so I'll uncheck that again, and you'll notice when I check that, now Connie Wallace, for example, groups, and I'm able to see my data further grouped and subtotaled under each of my accounts and dictators. So with those in place, I'm now going to click the Save button and save this report so we can run it again and take another look at it. So let's do that. Having made those adjustments, let's come back to my TAT report, and I'll back up to my June data set. And now I'll create my report. And here's my data set. So I can now see out of the 943 total reports in this reporting period, 201 of those belong to advanced orthopedics because I grouped by my account. And now for Dr. Harris, I can see 48 of those 201 were hers. And for each of the providers, it'll give me a subtotal as well. And you'll notice here all of the report information on files that were late. So for example, in this case for Dr. Harris, out of my 48 files transcribed, 48 were late. Let me scroll down. The same is true for Dr. Miller. Out of the 48 we transcribed, all 48 were late again. Now, you can see how helpful that would be for you as you are working on TAT reports to be able to drill down into the data to see where your late files are occurring, who the transcriptionist was, how many of the files were late and how many were on time, etc. Now, I could have grouped this report instead of by account and then by dictator. I could have grouped them by template or work type so that I could look for trends in terms of whether or not we're more frequently late with different work types. Or I could have grouped it by transcriptionist so I could see if particular transcriptionists were late in their reports more often than others, and then have all of the supporting data to back up each of those trends. Okay, now let's go back into the edit report section for a moment because I want to demonstrate a few other things about the column features. So I'm going to come to the top left corner, click on edit report, and we're right back into the same report. Sometimes I may want to customize certain columns, especially if the column is being sent over to my clients. And I want to use terms perhaps that they're more familiar with. So for example, let's say I had included in my report patient demographics. So I'll drag up the first name, I'll drag up the last name. And perhaps rather than just first and last, you'd like to add some additional information to that particular column header. And so I'll do that. I'll call this one first name instead of first, and I'll call this one last name instead of last. And maybe I also want to include the upload date so that my client can see that. But when I drag this up, you'll notice that in my upload column, in my preview, it displays not only the date, but also the time. And I would like to modify how that appears. So I can do that. My upload date is highlighted. And when I click on type under transform, I've got all these different options for how that data can present in that column. For example, if I was doing a report where I just needed to show my client monthly billing amounts, my column headers might just be the month name. In this particular case, I want to just present the date without the time. And so I'm able to select that here. And when I do, you'll notice that it automatically changes my preview so that I'm only seeing the date. Now that those changes are made, I'll hit the Save button, and my report is ready to run with those modifications. Now, another really neat thing I can do with these column headers is I can set default filters for data items I want to present. For example, let's say I want the report to always show data for month to date. Well, I can do that. I can click on the uploaded date column where we are now. And in my filter, I can set it so that whenever this report runs, it always runs as a month to date report. And you'll notice this little filter icon has appeared now to indicate that that particular column or data set has been filtered. The same thing with facility. I mean, maybe I really do only want to run this report on one particular client. And so I can choose that particular client in my filter. And now when that report runs, it'll only run on Advanced Orthopedics. And as we saw earlier, it'll only run on month to date. So I'll hit my Save button. And let's go out now and actually run this report again. So I'll come to my reports and to my TAT report, and look what it's done for me. It has preset some filters. Here's my Advanced Orthopedics. Here's my month to date. Now I can override those if I want, and I'll do that now to run this particular data set. So I'll go back to June where I've got my test data, and I'll click Create Report. And as we can see, my report has been filtered now to only run the data and reports for Advanced Orthopedics for that particular time frame. Now I'm going to go back into Edit Reports to remove those two filters because there's one additional way you can set those. So I'll remove that filter. You'll notice the little funnel icon has disappeared, and I'll do the same thing on my uploaded date filter. And I'll click Save. Now, if for some reason you don't set the filters ahead of time, you can always set them using the Add Filter feature right in the report runner here under Report Criteria. So once again, I want to run this report only on one of my facilities instead of all of my facilities. And let's say I'd like to add a few other filters, or at least I'll demonstrate one additional one. Let's say I just want to run on a particular report type. So again, we're worried about TAT, and I'm thinking, maybe for Advanced Orthopedics, maybe it's that more involved consult template that gives us the most trouble. So I want to just take a look at that consult template or report type for a given billing period and see how my TAT numbers looked in that particular period. So I set my date ranges again. I click Create Report. And I now have my data on that particular template or report type for all the dictators at Advanced Ortho. And as I suspected, we are late on that particular report type all the time. And that's a piece of information then that could inform you about changes you might need to make to a particular template, or in this case, I see that all of the notes are being typed, all of the consults are being typed for every dictator by Gina Davis. So maybe it's something about the template that's giving Gina trouble, and I need to spend some time figuring out why she's struggling with the consult template that's always causing us to be late. Well, I hope that's been a helpful initial orientation to the new reports module. Just as a quick recap, the report builder in the top left-hand corner is where you're able to go in to actually create your reports by dragging column headers up from the exclude to the include area of the report builder. Once you've created a report, you name it and save it, and the report will then show up under My Reports. Once it's in My Reports, you're able to run that report, and you're able to edit it by clicking the Edit Report button in the top left-hand corner to re-access the report builder and modify the report the way you need it to be modified. As I mentioned, this is the first of five videos. 4 more follow this one. Video 2, bill and pay dimension capabilities. Video 3, all of the new management reports that we've created. Video 4, how to set up report automation to have the system automatically email reports out to your clients and staff. And then lastly, video 5, how to run invoice detailed reports right through the system. One-on-one training sessions are available, and we will be holding group training sessions within the next couple of weeks. For immediate help about the report builder, contact us at 877-386-6677, option 2 for the help desk, or support@webchartmd.com.